Well, that's about the best organized I've seen 24th ID in a long time. Hey, Francisco, first of all, thanks for that extremely generous introduction. And I normally stand up and I say it's the second best introduction I ever got. And the best one was from my son, who had to introduce me to his Leavenworth classmates, 1,000 Chinese majors out there, half asleep, and he stood up there and he read painfully through every word in my long biography. And at the end of it, he said, I want you to know that I have worked for this great man for more than 21 years, primarily in the areas of lawn and automotive maintenance. Francisco, I do thank you for that introduction and for your service, particularly in 24th ID. And Catherine, beautiful words. You know, it's the emotions never go away. I'm always amazed when, having lost my brother-in-law in Vietnam, and 28 of my West Point classmates and a lot of my friends, and we lost these 18 great soldiers in 24th ID. And people use the word healing. You don't heal. Mothers don't forget their sons and daughters when they're killed in action, and spouses and siblings. They accommodate it. They finally understand God's will, and they put it in the right place. So, Catherine, thanks for reminding us of your loss and the loss of all of us. We had a lot of introductions at the start. We missed two key people in our world. Mayor Alan Brand, if you will stand, sir, recently sworn into office as mayor of Hinesville, our hometown, and Mayor Buddy Deloach, and Linda, if you'll stand, our mayor when we deployed to the desert. And a bunch of you probably remember the mayor came over with a bunch of Hinesville citizens, Savannah citizens. They passed out goodies to us during Christmas 1990, and Buddy, we love you for your leadership in those days. Tons of people here I ought to introduce, or at least recognize, and I'll never get remotely to all of them, but let me start with something. How about Darrell Williams? March on out here real quickly. Steve Harrington, Francisco, back up here, and Lon Busby. If you'll come out and stand next to me, quick, hustle on out here.
Move with a purpose!
Nothing happens by accident in life, and this is a committee that pulled together this event with the support of Third ID. How about a round of applause for the committee? Yes, okay. Good work. Thanks very much for doing that. By the way, if you're not aware of it, there's a group of that by J.W. Sternical put together this victory book. It's available online. They did a fabulous job. They took a lot of the photos that were available from that anniversary book we put out when we get home, but they've updated it, and they've got some great comments from many of you in there on what they remembered out of the campaign. So get a copy of that and have it for your grandchildren a few years from now. Jim Ramey, where are you in your command sergeant major? Let me again thank you for the support and the leadership. Your protocol section did a great job standing behind us. We know how busy you people are. If you're not aware of it, Third ID command team just got back from Afghanistan. They've been fully committed. They're getting ready to fight high-intensity warfare again. So we're appreciative of their support. And I need to remind this group, but that army that we fought in then went into continuous combat operations for over 12 years. 60,000 killed and wounded. You talk to somebody sergeant first class or a major in the Army today, and they have been continuously employed. Some 10, 15 combat deployments, Rangers and Special Ops in particular, Air Force C-130 Squadron. So we thank you for your service. Let me thank this terrific Third ID band and the color guard. Thanks for being out there. How about a round of applause? Thanks for your presence. Most important, of course, the veterans, all of you. 26,000 troops. Unbelievable performance. You know, there's a good argument that that was probably the most effective combat operation the U.S. Armed Forces ever pulled off. And there's a lot of reasons for it. You know, start off with, thank God for the United States Navy and Air Force. We're out there. Remember the opening night of the war with the Tomahawks going over, and Naval Air, and U.S. Air Force, and Marine Air, and Army Aviation headed north into Iraq. We also had coalition of allies around us. It's such unbelievable. We had an Egyptian corps, a Syrian corps. So that great president of ours, George H.W. Bush, a combat veteran at age 18. Anybody there on Thanksgiving when he came to talk to us in the desert? A couple of thousand 24th ID soldiers out there. The first words out of his mouth was, he said, you know, Thanksgiving 1944, I was flying my 5th to the last mission of World War II off the carrier San Jacinto in ground support of 24th ID fighting in the Philippines. We had great leadership. Colin Powell, that great General Schwarzkopf. You know, something I got to remind you, younger guys, about the senior division leadership of the division. We were all Vietnam veterans. Most of them wounded one or more times. We were bound and determined we weren't going to let happen to this generation what happened to us. And I think that paid off. One of the people that knows all about the U.S. Army over the last better part of 50 years, Joe Galloway, here with his wife Gracie. Let me ask Joe to stand up, if you will. How about a round of applause for Joe Galloway? And I say that because if you haven't read it, read We Were Soldiers Once and Young. Joe was really the scribe, this wonderful Lieutenant Colonel Moore. I think it's probably one of the best books ever written about small unit combat. I give it to civilians all the time who are going into national leadership positions to remind them the last 2 chapters are about the cost of war. When cab drivers are going around Columbus, Georgia with telegrams from the Secretary of the Army on the casualties, 303 killed in action in the 7th Cavalry during those few days of warfare. So Joe, thanks for being a chronicle and for being a friend and protector of soldiers over your entire lifetime. He's going to talk to us at lunch. I'll look forward to doing that. Somebody I wanted to speak for is Command Sergeant Major Jim Randolph, your division Command Sergeant Major during the war. Wonderful man, harder than woodpecker lips. Holy moly! Now, this was not a ballet dancing guy at all. He was a good man. I got to put him to rest in Oklahoma, rural Oklahoma. He was a man of the soil. I always used to like to tell a story about Jim. You know, when we were coming out of Iraq, suddenly, and one of the refueling areas that the divisional logistics guys put up was in Abu Sayyaf, Iraq. Not a place to retire. I mean, it was the worst thing I've ever seen. There'd been a big tank fight there with the 2nd Armored Division headed north. And all the buildings had giant holes in them. It was freezing ass cold like today. By the way, I apologize for the cold, but you know, being a wuss and an infantry officer for 32 years was really a problem. So we're standing there, and just, you know, there were Butterfly Air Force CBU bomblets all over the ground. We didn't know what to do with, and people weren't allowed to get off their vehicles. And I turned around and I looked at Abu Sayyaf and I said, Command Sergeant Major, God, isn't this the worst place you ever saw in your life? And he looked around and he said, well, I don't know about that. He says, this looks just like where I was raised in Oklahoma.